robot. The first part of the robot will be one that uses a transmitter and a receiver and is remote controlled. The second day, the challenge gets upped a bit, and you're going to have to now learn how to use computer programming to make an autonomous robot. So by the end of the event on Saturday, in your mind you should see, how do robots impact my life now? How do I see them? How can an interest in robotics and science translate to my next step in my educational career, as well as you're going to be 1 year ahead of other MESA programs that are going to be competing next year in the statewide next robotics competition. So with that, again, I want to welcome you, and I'm going to introduce Kamal from Sonoma State, and he's going to be our first keynote speaker.
Professor Lynn Stauffer would like to take the floor.
I'm just going to jump in and welcome you as well. My name is Lynn Stauffer, and I am the director of the new MESA program here at Sonoma State. I'm going to fill in for about 2 minutes while our very capable audio folks they're going to try and get sound working. So we're going to give them about 2 minutes to try to get that working. And so welcome here, and it's going to be incredibly busy 2 days. And a lot of fun, and you'll get to meet some of our SSU MESA students. And one today is Gloria Hurtado is here, and she is here becoming a math teacher. And so she can provide some background. Also, the students that you'll be working with that are college-level students, they are many of them associated with the MESA program, so you can get to meet them and all. So we're trying to get the sound working. We've got a real busy couple of days, and glad you're here. And you want any good jokes? I have a good joke. You want a good joke? Might as well get things started. So there's this older couple, okay, and they go. They're starting to get a little older, and they decide, let's go to the doctor and see, make sure we're not. They're starting to forget things. Make sure they don't have Alzheimer's or something really bad. And so they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, you know what? You're fine. It's totally normal. But tend to forget things as you get older. But so make sure you just write stuff down. Give yourself a checklist. Write stuff down. So they get home, and it's a nice evening. So they're sitting back on the couch watching, I don't know, Jeopardy or something like that. And the wife says to the husband, you know what? Could you or you got to go to the punchline. Could you give me ice cream sundae? Ice bowl ice cream. And he says, sure, no problem. So he gets up and he starts looking around, and he goes, oh, can you put some hot fudge on there? And he says, sure, no problem. Hey, can you put some nuts? Sure, no problem. She says, that's 3 things. The doctor said we should write this down so we don't forget. Don't be silly. So he goes to the kitchen, and he hears all this pots and pans banging, and she's like, and so he comes back, and he has this beautiful platter of eggs and toast. She says, we forgot the bacon. There you go. It sounds like there's some sound, so that's a good thing.
No, don't worry about it. It's okay. Yeah. Try it again. Yeah, I think we should start. This must be an omen that my talk is going to be very excellent. Okay, so can I get started? Yeah. Okay, so welcome everyone once again.
my name is Kamal. I work over here at Sonoma State University with the NASA Education and Public Outreach group. And thank you all for coming. You should all give yourselves a pat on the back because, as Darcy was explaining to you earlier, science and technology is where it's at. And hopefully, with my presentation, I'll be able to show you that, some of the sort of standard jobs that, people think about, like waiting tables, construction, and the like, are going to become obsolete in probably, another 10, 15, 20 years. And so in order to make sure that you succeed in life, you will need a solid math, science, engineering, science background. Okay, so my background is in science. I was a physics major at UC Santa Cruz. And what do scientists use a lot in their day-to-day lives? Or, you probably use it a lot too without realizing it. And, well, it's the scientific method, right? Anybody heard of the scientific method before? Excellent.
Wait a minute. How many of you have heard of the scientific method? Okay, there we go.
So what's the first thing that, when you're starting off with the scientific method, what is the first thing you do? You create a question, right? So here's my question. I'm going to approach this talk with, the steps of the scientific method. And so I'm starting out with my question, which is, if there was a war between pirates and ninjas, who would win? Pirates, ninjas? Well, sorry to disappoint you, but you guys are all wrong. It will be the robots. And you will see why that is in a little bit. But anyway, so keep that in the back of your mind about robots sort of winning this. I'll say war, but it's not really a war. It's sort of like where the future is headed. Okay, so what is a robot? A machine or device that operates automatically or by remote control. Now, that's sort of a very generic description. Nowadays, robots mean, the word robot means a little more than that generic description. But I will be using that as sort of my baseline for what a robot is. The word was first introduced by Czech writer Karel Čapek. I'm not sure how you say his name, in his book Rossum's Universal Robots, in which robots are sort of like the forced labor or slaves. And so the word robot comes from the word robota in Czech, which means forced labor. Robots are also known as automatons, and the robots that look like humans and behave like humans are known as androids. So the thing is, when we think of robots, we think of like electronics and sensors and metal and so forth. But by the definition I gave earlier, that something that behaves automatically or by remote control, that can be applied to a lot of things. And so in that sense, robots first appeared in mythology. You have in mythology, for example, gods creating like clay creatures and the like, or giving life to inanimate objects. So that's where robots first appeared. Now, any toy that mimics sort of like beating of a drum or walking of a duck can be considered a robot. So robots have existed for like thousands of years in forms of toys, simple toys, in many cultures. But the first person to design a robot or android was Leonardo da Vinci in 1495. Now, like most of his or many of his sort of contraptions, he was more of like a theorist. He used to draw out, diagrams and so forth, but he never really built many of his devices. And so his drawing of the Android was lost in notes somewhere, and it was rediscovered in the 1950s, and that is a replica or a creation based on those designs. Oh, by the way, on the bottom right over there, you'll see images of robots, and they don't have any particular meaning for this talk. Maybe I'll point out a couple of them as I go along. But for the most part, that's just to show you the different types, sizes of robots that exist in the world today. And so these are all real functioning robots. So the first person to actually build a working robot was this guy named Jacques de Vaucanson. I think that's right. It's a French guy. And he built a robot that played an instrument called the tabor and the pipe. And, it worked using compressed air, and he had all these constructions inside him that could play music. So it was imitating like a flute player, essentially. He also built he didn't call it the defecating duck. He called it the digesting duck. And why is the image not playing? Okay, that's what's supposed to be playing. Okay, so he claimed that you feed the duck food and it would go inside and it would get digested. It wasn't like the digestive process that we undergo, but it was similar. But the thing is, he wasn't being completely truthful. What happened in the middle there is that he had like a little chamber in which he would put mashed foods, ahead of time. And so, the duck wasn't really mashing up food or digesting the food. It was just taking, food on one end and then, excreting the mashed up version of that food on the other end. Anybody watch the Sarah Connor Chronicles, Terminator, on Fox? It's a good show. One thing that, if you follow the series, is that there is a device in there called the Turk. And the Turk is, in that show, is supposed to be the artificial intelligence that leads to the creation of robots that end up destroying the world, or humans, rather. And so the Turk in the show is named after Turk, the chess player. It was created by Johann Ritter von Kempelen, and it was designed to play chess. And the guy, every time he would bring it out, he would open up the cabinets to make sure that there wasn't anybody inside. For 80 years, this thing was on the road. It changed hands many times in those 80 years. It was on the road, and people would challenge it to play a game of chess and would usually lose. It wasn't until 80 years after it was sort of first demonstrated that it was proven to be a hoax. What would happen is, by the time the cabinets were sort of exposed and then closed up again, somebody would creep in from the back and be able to manipulate the mannequin there. This thing here, this is fake. This person here would manipulate this guy, this fake mannequin, into moving the chess pieces. So that was a pretty genius thing in itself, to have that sort of remote control of the mannequin, to be able to play chess in a way that it wasn't knocking over pieces and the like, and was able to beat grandmasters around the world. In the second half of the 1700s is when the Industrial Revolution started, with the creation of this water frame. And what it is essentially a spindle. It was created to spin threads into cloth, or cotton into threads. And it was powered by water, using a water wheel, and it uses metal cylinders and rods rather than human fingers. And so this, made making threads much faster. And so this guy, Richard Arkwright, he put a whole bunch of these in a building, and then he had people operating these things. And so for the first time, you had machines and people working under the same roof. And this, led to other creations, like, once you have something like this, then steam power becomes, more useful in driving these devices and so forth. And so that was really the start of the Industrial Revolution. The Jacquard loom was the first programmable machine. Now, it wasn't a computer in that it didn't compute, make any calculations, anything like that. But you could use punch cards with, cards with holes punched in them, and you could use it to draw out different designs on the cloth that you were producing, using the threads on this side. So Charles Babbage, a British mathematician, saw this, and while he had been working on other things as well, he was a mechanical engineer, a mathematician, he was an inventor. So these things sort of was the best combination of things for him to have to be able to sort of create the first computer. Now this is a replica of his design. Unfortunately, during his lifetime, he could never build a working machine. These machines were made up of like smaller machines that would, sort of calculate values to the 10th place, and then it would sort of pass that value to the second engine, and that would calculate sort of the 100th place and so forth. Anyway, it used punch cards as inputs and outputs. Nikola Tesla, anybody know him? He was the first to demonstrate a remote control device. And it was just a simple boat that he did, used remote control. He was a big proponent of wireless power, which, was sort of booed at the time. But Intel right now is researching transmission of power, through air. They have a little demonstration where they light up like a 100-watt light bulb. It's just like sitting there on a table with the power being transmitted from external source. The first robot to appear on screen appeared in the movie called Metropolis. At the time it was made, it was the most expensive movie. And the movie was set in 2027, about a sharply divided working and rich class. The ENIAC was the first computer, working computer, a true working computer. It was It weighed 30 tons. That whole room is one computer. It weighed 30 tons. It took up a whole room. It was made up of 17,000 vacuum tubes. And vacuum tubes are just devices that were able to sort of switch on and off to sort of, store record. In 1942, Isaac Asimov formulated the 3 laws of robotics. Law number 1 being a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So, the first part is good enough. A robot may not injure a human being. But the second part is more interesting. Through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So, if a robot is standing over here, and the robots that Isaac Asimov is talking about are androids, thinking, human-looking robots. So, if a robot is sort of standing on the side of the road, he sees a bus barreling towards the human. By this law, he is compelled to try to save the human being. A robot must obey orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. So, a human cannot ask another robot to go kill another human, but it can ask it to do, pretty much anything else. And then a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So, this is sort of like a lot of people who work in robotics today, and they're talking about artificial intelligence. These are like some of the things that they think about quite a bit. Because what happens when robots become thinking machines, right? Rather than just dumb machines, right? Like a robot can think for itself. What happens when that comes to pass? Alan Turing in 1950 proposed the Turing test. And the Turing test was designed as a benchmark to see if a machine has become as intelligent as a human being. And the way this test worked was you would have a human being sitting in one room typing in questions like, hello, how are you? How are you feeling today? Any number of questions, any question that one human being might ask another human being. And then on the other end would either be a human being or a computer. And so the test was to see if this person could tell whether this thing here is a computer or another human being. And when this person cannot distinguish between whether this thing here is a human or a computer, the Turing test has passed, meaning that this is as intelligent as a human being. Now, there have been, sort of like these competitions that people create artificial intelligences to see if they can pass the Turing test, and there is no like 100% like a machine that 100% passes Turing test, but it comes the way this particular competition works. The Lebanese, I forgot to write it down. Lebner Prize, it's called. Anyway, so the Lebner Prize says that a machine has passed the Turing test if it can at least fool half the people into believing that this machine is actually a human being. And so the artificial intelligence that won last year in 2008 was named Albot. You can go talk to Albot at albot.com. And this is one of the things that helped it pass the Turing test. So the human asks, do you understand the point of the Turing test? Albot says, there are some people who would not pass the Turing test themselves, which is, true. If only half of them, believe that this is a computer. Anyway, so I definitely recommend going to check out Albot. It will argue with you that 2 + 2 is equal to 5, and And it has some funny conversations about ask Albot if you should take an umbrella if it's raining today. So Alan Turing was the guy who sort of proposed this test, but artificial intelligence really came into being with Alan Newell and Herbert Simon in 1956. They created a program called the logic theorist that was able to successfully prove several mathematical theorems. The first robot employee was used in General Motors factories starting in 1961, and essentially it was moving die castings and welding them, and this job was it became important to have a robot do this job because that job was very harmful to the humans that were doing it before that. In 1971, before 1960s, the vacuum tubes were used as sort of like the devices to store and calculate make calculations in computers. After 1960, solid state devices like the transistor became more important. And so this device here is the Intel's first microprocessor that was released to the market. It's called the 4004. It was 12 millimeters square, so about like the tip of this pen here on each side. The smallest vacuum tubes, on the other hand, were at least a couple of centimeter cubed. And, and that ENIAC computer I showed you that took up the whole room before, had several thousand vacuum tubes in there. And while the ENIAC cost over 400,000, this device cost only 200, and it was able to perform as well or better than the ENIAC that took up the whole room. In 1975, Bill Gates and Paul Allen formed a software company with a vision of putting a computer on every desk in every home. They weren't known as Microsoft until 1976, a year later. This word was used in a memo that Bill Gates sent to Paul Allen in 1975 as just like a placeholder for their company name. Currently, on average, each American home has about 2 computers. So, in some respects, they have at least, computer in every home. Maybe not every desk, but with the advent of netbooks and, really cheap, like $300-400 computers, it's getting there. The first robot killer. So Robert Williams was the first person to die at the hands of a robot. Robert thought that the robot wasn't working fast enough, moving the materials in the factory line, and so he tried to do the job of the robot, and there was no mechanism to inform people that, hey, there was a robot in the vicinity. I don't know what happened. Maybe there was too much noise or something. But anyway, Robert became the first casualty of a robot. The first international robotics conference was held in Albuquerque, New Mexico. By this time, because of the economic climate in the United States, a lot of robotics research had moved away from big universities or corporations to foreign countries like Japan and Europe. So starting in the 1980s, none of the industrial robots that sort of helped build out cars and so forth were built in the United States. They were all built outside. in Europe or Japan, where it is still true today. The robots that you see here are mostly hobbyists, people who were tinkering in their garages, would build robots, and they would bring them to these conferences and sort of show them off. Lego and MIT get into the robotics business. MIT Media Labs. Anybody heard of the One Laptop a Child program? The guy who started that program was also the guy who started the MIT Media Labs. So that's kind of cool. That it seems like he's always been interested in bringing technology to kids. That same year, Honda begins a robotics research program. So make a note of their first prototype, and you will see what the new version looks like later in the slide. So before Dante 2, there was a Dante 1. In 1993, there was a competition put up by NASA for an organization to build a robot that could climb up into a volcano and gather samples. And Dante 1 failed only because the tether, which is kind of hard to see here, but it's right there, the tether broke, and so the robot fell into the magma and got destroyed. But as far as it wasn't the robot's fault that it failed. It just they couldn't retrieve any data because the robot was gone. And anyway, so they built another one, called it Dante 2, and it won the NASA prize the following year in 1994. So what's the state of robotics today? There's, smaller, cheaper hardware is making robotics accessible to people everywhere. If you read technology blogs or even the newspaper, if not daily, there's at least one or two articles about robots in the science and technology sections. And robotics is available in many things like toys. Anybody heard of the Ivo dog by Sony? There's the Clio that the company sort of went under recently, unfortunately. So Clio was a dinosaur. Dinosaur went extinct. It's too bad. And then Tickle Me Elmo is another example, right? It's not a very good robot, but it's a pretty funny one. And internet access is really facilitating the interaction of people all over the world into building robots. They teach each other, they learn from each other, they try to one-up each other to see who can build a better robot, and so that's working really well. So right now, Japan is the leader of in the industrial and humanoid robotics research. You can see there, they have about 4 times the amount of research that goes on in the U.S. Now, these are industrial robots. Then there are androids also. Again, Japan is the leader in that. The reason why Japan is putting so much effort into robotics is they have a very large aging population and not a lot of young people. So they need people to take care of the older people. Well, they don't have people, so what do? They build robots instead. And so, you will see, and there's just so much information. I don't have, time to show all of it, but, there's robots that, clean your houses. They in hospitals, for example, they go around and, monitor devices that are hooked up to, to various patients and so forth. It can alert the emergency services, for example, if it sees a person sort of lying on the ground and not moving, it can, sort of think and say, hey, people don't lie on the ground and they don't, normally not move when they're lying on the ground. So maybe there's something wrong with this person. I should call the paramedics. So Honda is leading the industry in humanoid robotic design. Let's see if we can get this to work now. Come on. Okay, maybe not. Okay, so ASIMO stands for Advanced Step in Innovative Mobility. It's not, based on the name Asimov, Isaac Asimov, which was a big robotics guy earlier. And as you can see from a couple of slides ago, that the first prototype of this robot they built was just a pair of legs. So ASIMO can run up to 6 kilometers per hour. It can interact with humans, take commands. So a human might say, bring me a table, bring me that table. And ASIMO will respond. It is, like I said, it's able to run, carry stuff. It can recognize itself. It can recognize other humans. It can recognize faces. And recently, the remote control of ASIMO was demonstrated using just thought. So essentially, a guy sat in this device. He had a helmet put on, which had electronics in it. That when the person thought about moving ASIMO would move. He would move his hands when the guy thought about moving his hands and so forth. So ASIMO has come a long way. You cannot buy ASIMO right now, but you can definitely rent him. Oops, what did I do here? Anybody know what this is? It used to be known as the Predator, and now it's called the MQ-9 Reaper. It's an unmanned aerial vehicle. It is remote controlled. It was first introduced in 2001, and it is used by the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. It can be used for surveillance, but it can also carry weapons. And the first Predator to kill humans, that event took place in 2002, and there are currently 5,000 robots like these deployed in Iraq. Now, this is not the only kind of robot. They have ground robots as well. Now, what's sort of unique about the Predator is, because it is remote controlled, you can be sitting here in the United States and be dropping bombs on people in Afghanistan or Iraq, and that's what's happening. So military people here, people who are in the military who are trained to operate this, they may have 9 to 5 schedules. They wake up in the morning, go fly these things around, mostly surveying things, but if they have targets of opportunity where they spot a terrorist, they might drop a few bombs on people. And then 9 o'clock, 5 o'clock comes around, they get to go home and eat dinner with their family. So the problem, as you can see, it's sort of dehumanizes war a little bit, right? It makes it more like a video game. Let me see here if I can get the video playing for this one. So you will see the operation of the predator, this sort of predator taking off. There's a whole bunch of these, and there are people just like these sitting here in rooms, away from the front lines, controlling them. So a lot of robotics funding robotics research that is done in the United States right now is in some part funded by the US military. Anybody recognize this? The Roomba? So the Roomba is a robotic vacuum cleaner of sorts. It's not very big; it's maybe about this big, but it lives in your house. It can automatically adjust to different types of environment, going from say a carpet to a hardwood floor. It can detect the amount of dirt on your floor, and then maybe spend more time cleaning that area than it would say another area. It can go in, it can detect sort of its boundaries. For example, coming up, you'll see it approaches the stair, detects, hey, there's an edge. I'll fall off if I go any further, and it backs off. It can go underneath furniture, and it has a brain such that it can sort of detect what it's done, cleaned so far, and what's still left. Over here, it's either it's done cleaning or it's low on battery, and so it goes back to a home station to get a recharge. That's a boundary transmitter that tells it like don't go beyond this point. And so that's available. I think it's like a few $100. You can buy it, use it, and so that's an American company that does this, makes those robots, and guess what's their other big thing that they do? It has to do with building robots for the military, and it's usually for like surveillance. For example, they might have a little tank droid or something that goes into a room, clears it out, makes sure that, there's no hostiles in there, and so forth. So. Spirit and Opportunity are two Mars rovers that were launched in the year 2000. They are on Mars right now. And let's see, I have a video for that. So they were launched in they were launched in 2003. They landed in 2004. They were supposed to last only 90 Martian days. One Martian day is like 40 minutes over Earth day, which is 24 hours. So 24 hours and 40 minutes is a Martian day. And they were supposed to last 90 Martian days. Well, it's 2009, and they're still functioning. It's been over 1,000 Martian days. So these are fairly well-built robots. They're fairly big. They are 1.5 meter high, 2.3 meters wide, and 1.6 meters long, and each one weighs 180 kilograms. Like a normal person like me, I think I weigh maybe 70, 75 kilograms. Anyway, it is designed it's shown moving much faster than it actually does. It normally moves a few centimeters a minute. And the way it works is, somebody over here sends a signal to the robot, okay, move forward X number of meters or whatever, or centimeters. And, it takes a while for the signal to get there. The robot moves. Then, after a few minutes, sends a signal back saying, oh, I've moved. What do I do next? And, it studies Martian rocks and soil samples to determine whether, water once existed on Mars, which, by all accounts, has been shown that yes, liquid water did once exist on Mars, but it also looks for other evidence of, maybe microbial life or just environmental factors, the atmosphere, to see whether Mars could have once supported life. So there's another debate going on in the scientific community, or in people who do space exploration, is whether it's better to send a human or a robot into space. Well, what's the advantage of sending a robot?
You don't have to support it.
Right. It's cheaper. You don't have to worry about it dying on you because it's just a piece of machine.
You don't have to bring it back.
You don't have to bring it back. Yeah. Right. I mean, these guys are just gonna stay there once they run out of juice or stop functioning. On the other hand, humans have always had the desire for exploration. If we didn't, then the new world wouldn't have been found, right? So many hundreds of years ago, and so forth. And the robot, as I explained earlier, moves really slowly. It has limited capabilities. For example, if you're looking for plant life on another planet, for this robot to do that, it could take several days, whereas a human being could just turn his or her head and say, hey, there's a plant there. So there's pros and cons of both, and we will see how things progress in the future. There are definitely several more robotics missions planned to Mars and other planets and moons of those planets beyond Mars, and like Jupiter and so forth. So, one of the biggest challenges, in creating robots that act like humans is computer vision. For example, for a robot to recognize the difference between, say, a male and a female, if both persons have like short hair, they're wearing just shirts and pants, it's a big deal. It's hard for a robot to do, and so that's a big area of research. Is vision. So Microsoft has been working on this virtual robot. If you go to the Microsoft campus in Redmond, Washington, you will be greeted by oops, I don't know if she has a name. But anyway, there on the left is what the people see, and this is what the virtual assistant sees. It can distinguish between different groups of people, so she knows that these two guys are together, whereas this guy is separate. She knows who is talking with a little red dot. She knows whether the people are talking to each other or talking to her. And she can determine whether, like the attire. For example, whether the guy is casually dressed or, like more professionally with a suit and tie and so forth. It has all these speakers microphones to detect where the sound is coming from. So if this guy speaks, she can hear and respond, maybe with something like, I will be with you in just a minute. She knows when the conversation has ended, so she moves on to the next person. And And so, that's just a camera and a computer, right? Now, what you can do with that is, once you have the system, you can put it in something like a ASIMO, right? So now ASIMO has computer vision. It has the mobility already, and it can get, computer vision this way. It's not perfect. It's very limited right now. For example, if you, if you send it, if you put this thing in ASIMO right now and you send it out onto the streets, you'll probably get run over by a car. Natural language interface is another big area of research. And what I mean by that is, when you ask a person a question, for example, hey, it's raining outside, should I take my umbrella? A person can answer that question intelligently, right? But if you ask Google that answer, it does not know. I mean, unless somebody has maybe written a blog post about it or something like that, it won't know what to give you, right? There is a project called Wolfram Alpha that is being released later this month. It's by Stephen Wolfram, the guy who created Mathematica, and the website is wolframalpha.com. And it is supposed to be able to sort of create knowledge. So, for example, you could ask it, between 1980 and year 2000, what's the correlation of the weather to earthquakes in California? And it will generate data and show you, on really rainy days, there was earthquakes, or not, stuff like that. Anybody heard of the DARPA challenge? It was put forward by DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, to create an autonomous ground vehicle. So, essentially to create a car that can navigate terrain, any type of terrain by itself. It was introduced in 2004. No car went past 12 kilometers of the 240-kilometer track. So, first year, everybody failed, and they failed really quickly. The second year, 5 teams finished the challenge. Oh, okay, so I should tell you. The terrain was from, I think, Los Angeles to Las Vegas. So it was like desert area. Nothing outside to deal with. So, in 2004, nobody won. 2005, 5 teams finished. Stanford team came in first in just under 7 hours. And then the 4 other teams, came in maybe half hour, 1 hour later. Now, the video I'm going to show you right now is the DARPA Urban Challenge. And what that is, maybe if you guys are really quiet, you can hear the audio on this one. It's an interview of the Carnegie Mellon team that won the Urban Challenge. And what the Urban Challenge is, essentially creating an autonomous vehicle that can navigate city streets. It knows if people are crossing the street, if the car in front of it is slowing down, if something like trash can fell over into the road, and so forth.
Each of these is a Core 2 Duo, so there's about 10 of them in here, and they're running a 127 606 Linux. Up here, we have our hard drives where we can store all the telemetry, everything boss thought. So if it makes a mistake, we go back and look at why that happened. And it's about 1 terabyte of storage there. We have a monitor and keyboard so we can debug things. On the left here, we have our GPS and a planning system, which uses GPS data and an inertial measurement to figure out where the vehicle is. Some safety hardware, flux capacitor, and power system.
GPS is fairly, it's not down to the centimeter really. How does it avoid running over, like, my dog, say?
Well, so, the GPS wouldn't tell you where your dog is, so it uses the lasers to look out and see where your dog is and tries to avoid it. And then we use lasers on the back of the vehicle to look down and see where the lane markings are. So as it's driving along, you can detect those and kind of center itself or register itself to the road.
So how long was this in development? This is a very complicated endeavor, I'd imagine.
The actual urban challenge, this vehicle, we started working on about 1.5 years ago. So we had about a year and a little bit before the race. So the challenge was a 60-mile race in a suburban environment. The vehicle had to be able to drive among other traffic. So on challenge day, there was 10 other vehicles out there within 50 human-driven vehicles. It had to stop at stop signs. It had to yield for traffic. It had to be able to park. And it had to be able to do it all completely autonomously. That means without remote control, without somebody in it, making all its own decisions.
So how long until I can just kick back on the highway and let my own version of boss just do the driving? What do you think? 10 years, 20 years? How far away is that?
We think, kind of from a technological point of view, it's about a decade out. So maybe by 2020, you'll be able to buy a car that has these features, maybe a subset of what boss can do, and get you between one place and another without you having to worry about it.
With the way technology is moving, that may come to pass sooner than 2020. We'll see. Kismet. It's pronounced Kismet because it's an Indian word, but it's when people speak of Kismet here they say Kismet, and it is a robot. Actually, it's just a robot head. And it is designed such that it can recognize human expression. It's the first sociable robot. So you'll see a little video of that here. Kismet can respond to external auditory and visual stimuli. It can express and detect sadness, happiness, surprise, anger, among other things. Cynthia Brazil is the person that's sort of the creator and the operator in this video of Kismet. And guess where part of the funding for Kismet comes from? It comes from DARPA and the Office of Naval Research. Now, why would defense industry might be interested in something like this? Well, let's say you send a robot out into like a hostile zone, right? You might want to be able to tell whether the person approaching you is a friendly or a real hostile, somebody who means you harm. And so by reading people's facial expressions and body language, they can determine whether like, hey, I should be worried about this guy, or it is okay to interact with this person. RoboCop, international competition of robot soccer. It was started in Japan with 8 local teams, and it has now grown to over 373 teams from 35 different countries. The goal of the project is to, by mid-21st century, create a team that's fully autonomous and humanoid that can win a soccer game against the best, human team in the world. It is also grown to include categories like, these are bipedal robots, but they have like robots that run on wheels or like have 4 legs and so forth. They have this rescue challenge where they have to go and rescue a dog that may be caught in like a fire in a building that's on fire or something like that. The cyborgs are coming. Actually, they're already here. And a cyborg is essentially a person whose physiological functioning is supplemented by electronics. These are, of course, medical devices. This one helps a person see. And there is a working version of this. It's in trial right now. Cochlear implants have been around for a while now, which allow deaf people to hear. There's a little like an electrode that goes inside the brain, in your inner ear, and it helps people hear. Prosthetics like these have been around for a long time, but they have very often, not been as useful. But with electronics and sensors, the way they're like sort of becoming smaller in sizes and cheaper, it is possible for this person to say, break an egg to cook an omelet. And of course, there's that over there. Maybe you guys have that. So that makes you a cyborg. Let's see. Oh, here, I should start here. So, looking to the future. I've been replaced at work by a machine that does what I did. Dog says they've invented a machine that steals office supplies. More and more routine tasks, like waiting tables, for example, construction, are going to be taken over by robots. What's the advantage of having a robot employee? Well, they don't get sick, they don't need health care or wages, they don't complain about their work environment, and there is robotics research is done in service industry, agriculture. There's robots that pick watermelon, for example. They can prune grapevines. And so this is just an example of a restaurant in Germany that's run entirely by robots. So I won't show the whole clip, but the food, there's a little, at each table there's a little touch screen that people can place orders from, and then it gets prepared, and then the robots deliver it to the tables. So four times. So even though it looks flat here, there have been many significant advances. Computer performance continues to increase, and nowhere is it more apparent than gaming. And so, you guys are probably too young to remember some of these old games, but So not only does this take processing power to draw all those images, but it takes artificial intelligence. Because you can design a computer that's perfect. They'll score 100% of the points each time. But how do you make a computer that fails intelligently, right? When it shoots you, it misses in a way that's realistic. That's, I think, even harder to do. So I think you get the picture. I'll stop. So another advancement that's coming and happening right now is in the area of nanotechnology. Nanobots, robots that are the size of few atoms. This is a nano car that's about 10 atoms wide. Now it cannot be controlled right now, but the structure is there, and so there of course research is being done on how to manipulate these nanobots, as they are called. So a big application or a big area of research in nanotechnology is in the area of medicine, which is delivering medicine to the like cancer cells, for example, that kill the cancer cells but leave the other cells alone. I'll skip the video. So there's this idea, right, called the singularity, which is, when machines become smarter than humans. When will that happen? Well, the current projection lies somewhere between 2020 and 2030. 10 years ago, it was about 2040. So that number has come down, and it may come down even further. Now, the hardware, that's only the hardware for singularity. That means, hardware being able to do X number of calculations, maybe as fast as our brains can. The second bit is, of course, software. And software is going to be the harder part. About, for example, what I talked about, like with the vision technology and so forth. How do you integrate all of that and make singularity a reality? Now, does that mean that the human race will cease to exist when we hit singularity? Well, not necessarily. It depends on how we treat the robot that doesn't want to work for you anymore, right? If it is self-aware, if it has intelligence that is greater than yours, and you own it, what do you tell it when it decides, hey, he doesn't want to live with you and work for you anymore. He wants to go do something else. That's going to be sort of the deciding factor on what happens when robots become smarter than humans. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Things like robo-ethics will come into play, right? Just example, what I showed you earlier. Who is responsible if a robot created by someone does harm? Navy, the United States Navy is funding, a report, or funded this report, robots going haywire, and this is based on an incident with the U.S. Army, where a robot accidentally targeted friendly forces as hostile. It didn't kill anybody because it was still under control of humans, but there was that chance. If it was autonomous, it could have killed people. So what's the conclusion? Well, robotics is going to become as robots are going to become as prevalent as computers have in the last 10 years or so. It's going to happen in the following 10 years. And like I was saying, most of the sort of the menial, mundane tasks will go to these machines. And whether And because it's going to happen in the next 10 years or so, you guys are the ones who will be deciding what path this robotics takes. So the conclusion is left up to you to decide on what happens with robotics in the future. Thank you.